another Down Dog update, and today I'm really excited. We have a very special guest. Janna Leyde is here, and we are at Bend Yoga Studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And today I am speaking with a full-time yoga teacher and an author. And I actually have her latest book here. It's called Move, Feel, Think, Yoga for Brain Injury, PTSD, and Other Forms of Trauma. And I am so impressed, first of all, doing things that a lot of yoga teachers aspire to. First of all, teaching full-time yoga, which I feel like is a big accomplishment in itself.
It's crazy town. It means you can't be a full-time student anymore.
Yeah, no, it's true. And then doing this book thing and being an author. And it's really interesting, the thing that you've decided to focus on. Can you tell us a little bit more about the topic of this book and how you've kind of gotten into that?
Sure. Basically, the long story made short is that my dad has a brain injury. He was in a car accident in 1996. What year is it? And a lot of his injuries were mental. So he has a lot of behavioral issues and emotional issues. And I say issues lightly, but these are the challenges that he has in his life. So the book was originally going to just be about basically a book for him to do yoga at home when I wasn't living in New York City and he was near Pittsburgh. And he just really wanted to have things like written out. And I started to think, like, as I was doing this practice with him, that it wasn't a book yet. It was just 20 poses that I made up one day and was like, I think he can do this. There's so many other benefits that he was getting from a routine yoga practice. And it was just a couple times a week, and I would call him from New York and tell him to do it. And they were benefits that other treatments for his brain injury and all of his sort of challenges and deficits from the injury weren't really touching upon. He was becoming more aware of his injury, which is like a very hard thing to do if you have a brain injury, because it's the last thing you want to become aware of. You don't want to be like, yes, I have a brain injury and I'm going to accept that. But once you do that, you can get to a place where you can work with rather than against the things that challenge you. And I think that's like a great thing about the yoga practice. So he became less impulsive, he became more compassionate, and all because he just spent time on a mat.
Wow.
So that was not a short story. But I basically realized that there wasn't any book or resource out there that brought yoga and brain injury together. So I thought, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I realized in doing so and in writing it, it was really more about trauma than brain injury. It was about the emotional ways and the cognitive ways that we have challenges from any kind of trauma. So trauma, PTSD, all the veterans that come back in their lives are totally different, and that's hard to accept. And trauma because, you know, maybe your favorite pet died, and that's just kind of stopped you from doing things. So I also think yoga is just incredibly healing, and it's helped me in all kinds of ways to heal from growing up with a dad with a brain injury and, I don't know, breakups, you name it. Mm-hmm. Yoga's good stuff.
Yeah, it's true. We all have to deal with something in our lives.
Yes, yes.
Now, what research did you have to do to write this book?
What research did I have to do? A lot. I had to really get into what these deficits are when you have different parts of your brain injured, and to actually approach it in a concrete way so that, like, you can see like the benefits pages. There's like a list of benefits, and some are move, which is the physical, and then there's think, which is the emotional behavioral, and or that was wrong. Feel, which is the emotional behavioral, and think, which is the cognitive benefits. So for example, there's a big thing in brain injuries called executive function, and that's basically like the hard drive of your brain. And if you're a computer, imagine what happens when your hard drive crashes. So if you have a brain injury, imagine what happens when your hard drive or your executive function crashes. And it's just all kinds of ways that it ends up being, to me, about, you can study and you can go all into this, and there's so much stuff online and there's so many books. Mm-hmm. But it's about neuroplasticity. It's about changing the patterns. And if you can start to learn how to change the patterns in your physical body on your mat, it starts to rewire other patterns. And it gives you that door starts to open to think that nothing is really static. And it's not going to happen overnight. And it's not going to be a quick fix. Yeah. But you get into this place where, as my dad says, you start to move more smoothly through life. Mm-hmm. So I talked to a lot of his doctors. I've read so many books on brain injury. I'm starting to read books on PTSD, and just talking to people and knowing their experience of, hey, try these yoga poses. How do you feel? What's different? Yeah. So, and it feels like a first thing out there like it. So there was a part in it where I'm like, I can't do this. There's no research. There's no research. So I just said, you know what? This isn't research. This is just, I'm a teacher. I have that credibility. This is a practice. See what it can do for you.
Yeah, that's amazing and really respectable that you wanted to approach that. It's a sensitive subject for you personally.
Yeah.
It
just helped so much. And there's so much crap. I would rather share the stuff that helps instead of the stuff that doesn't help. And I guess I'm glad that I didn't stop because there wasn't, I'm trying to think of what the word I'm looking for. There weren't like research papers written about this or scholarly articles about this or stats to back it up. I'm like, we're all doing yoga anywhere. We're all trying to fix our own stuff. So I just needed something to give this community.
Yeah, and I feel like oftentimes it seems the case that things that come up in your life kind of lead you in a certain direction, and sometimes you think that it might be a negative thing, but in the long run, you see it with a lot of people. They end up helping millions of people.
It's amazing. That's such an amazing power. And when you're in that really terrible, horrible place and you're sad, it feels like the worst place ever. But when you can start to share your story, and a lot of this is just sharing my story. The more I can share my story and the things that have had me in places of like pain and sorrow and frustration, the more you can connect with people and like you said, like make something good of it.
Right, exactly.
So.
And for those yoga teachers out there that might have a different experience and want to share something as far as publishing a book goes, can you give them a little insight or tell us a little bit about how that came to be for you?
Sure. It sounds really stupid, but just do it. If you want to do it, just carve time out of your day. Your friends might think you're crazy. And just start writing things down, right? And know that at the beginning, and as a writer too, the writing happens in the rewriting. So you're going to write stuff down, and I learned this with my first book, which is a novel, like a lot more words. You're going to hate it. You're going to write it down, and you're going to hate it, and you're going to judge yourself, and then ego is going to come in, and then you're like, oh, I can't do this. And then you come to this place where you feel like a fraud, like doing this. And I can remember when I first started teaching yoga and being up in the middle, like the center of the room, and the attention was on me, and I was like, I'm not really a teacher yet, you guys. Like, this isn't a thing. Like, my teachers are teachers, and it's just sort of a hump you have to cross. And it happens with really sharing anything that you want to have any sort of authority on. So you sit down and you do it, and you have faith and you have confidence, and you ask other people when the time is right. And in some ways, and it sounds kind of terrible, but if you look at it in a productive way, there's going to be a lot of rejections. But each rejection is going to have you approach it in a different way, and it becomes a greater piece, and it just keeps building and building and building and building.
Yeah, I guess along with those rejections, the next question I was going to ask is, so when you've written it, what do you do?
What do? You let someone else read it, and then they're going to or they're going to be like, this is the most amazing thing ever. And you're like, I need something in the middle, because it's not the most amazing thing ever, but it's not terrible. So you find the mechanics of it, you write it, you find a content editor who's going to pull stuff out of it that will make you sad because you thought that was the best part of it. This book used to have lots of little stories in it, little vignettes of my life with my dad, and one of my very best friends is a very great editor, and she read it and she liked it, and she's like, those are great little stories. Out, done. Nobody cares. This is a book that's going to help people do a practice. You've already written a book with stories. It's like, okay. So be open to cutting things out that you thought were like your best idea ever. And then you find like a copy editor that just puts your comments in the right place. And understand that it's a process, and it doesn't just move perfectly forward. It moves forward, it moves back, it moves sideways. You want to throw it out the window. Excuse me. Then some days you want to hug it. Like when this came, I was like, oh, awesome. Okay, what's next? This has been enough of my life. But and I think teaching is the same way. Like just starting to teach, and writing and teaching for me have become sort of synonymous in terms of I do it because I just want to share what I think I know, what I'm learning with my students and with my readers, and it's not going to be perfect, and a lot of times I'd rather be vulnerable than be someone I'm not, and it ends up being either way. You step forward in your yoga teaching career, and then you step back, and then you have one class that you're like, whoa, what was I thinking?
Yeah, it happens. Now, for people that have brain injury or trauma experiences and want to get the benefits of this book, where can they find it?
Amazon.com. or you can go to my website. You can also purchase it there. The only difference is that if you purchase it on my website, I can sign it for you. If you purchase it on Amazon,
That's nice, definitely.
I'm not sure who's going to sign it for you. But yeah, it's readily available, both of those places. And a lot of things too, there's so little resources for yoga out in this community, because for a long time in this Western culture, it's either power yoga and that's awesome and you get fit and you're happy with your body, or it's super zen and you sit and channel all of the good stuff. But if you're in this just really real raw place in your life, you're not gonna exercise and you're not gonna sit and turn all your problems into whatever. So I wanted something middle of the line to just be like, try it, fold forward, see what a forward fold can do for you.
Yeah,
see what lifting up and looking up. And I actually present at a lot of brain injury conferences, and it's always pretty amazing to see what people do when you ask them to just fold forward and breathe, to stand up tall and breathe. And they look at you and they're like, what did you do? And you can feel the whole room, like 70 people, just chill out.
Wow.
So
amazing.
It's such a telling thing. I'm like, oh, hey, I might actually be doing something here.
That's awesome. I know you are doing something.
Well, thank you.
It seems really valuable. So we have Move, Feel, Think. You can order it on Amazon or off Janna's website, as well as find out more about what she's doing on her website, and we'll list all that afterwards. So thank you so much, Janna, for joining us.
Thank you.
Really
this is awesome. Thanks for coming to Bend.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next time for another episode.